afternoon, brothers. Today is the first episode of my new podcast, Light Upon the Altar. And as we're first taught, no man should ever enter upon any great or important understanding without first invoking the blessing of deity. Vouchsafe thine aid, Almighty Father of the universe, to this our present convention, and grant that our brothers of Masonry may dedicate and devote his life to thine service, and become a true and faithful brother among us, and do him with a competency of thine divine wisdom, that be the secrets of our art, he may be better enabled to display the beauties of brotherly love, relief, and truth, to honor of thy holy name. Amen. So mote it be. Once again, hello, brothers. So, some might ask, what's this going to be about? We're going to talk about how our faith is rooted in the lodge. This first episode, that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to cover many different things about how our faith is rooted in Masonry and how it's foundational to our cause and who we are as Masons. So, brothers and friends, I want to welcome you to the podcast. And like I said, we're going to talk about something that's in fact sometimes overlooked, and that subject is faith. Now, Freemasonry is not a religion. We say that clearly and we say it often. But just as clearly, Freemasonry cannot exist and does not exist without faith. Before a man can be made a Mason, he must already be a man who believes. Believes in something higher than himself, believes that life has meaning beyond chance, believes that moral truth is real, binding, and accountable. Tonight, or today, wherever you're listening, we'll explore why faith is the foundation of the Lodge, what Masonry means by faith, and how that faith is meant to shape not just our ritual, but our lives. Excuse me. What Masonry means by faith. When we talk about faith in Masonry, it's important to be clear about what we mean and what we don't. Masonic faith is not about enforcing doctrine. It's not about telling a man what to believe. Instead, it is about conviction that a man does believe. Freemasonry requires belief in a supreme being who we refer to as the great architect of the universe. Not so we can define God, but so that God may define us. Faith in Masonry is the recognition that there is a moral order in the universe. The order did not originate within us, and we are accountable to something higher than our own opinions. This shared belief is what allows men of different religions, cultures, and backgrounds to kneel together in prayer, each in his own way, yet united in reverence. Faith is the common ground beneath our feet that unites us with all of our brothers from the nations all across the world. Now, you must have faith in a supreme being, a God, not the devil. Atheists are not welcome among us. Why faith must come first? Freemasonry does not create faith, it assumes it. And that distinction matters. A man enters the lodge already believing. He does not come to Masonry to find God. He comes because he already acknowledged God. He acknowledges God already exists. If you're coming to Masonry to find God, you're looking in the right place, but we can direct you to a good local church. Some might ask why. Because without faith, an obligation becomes formality, a symbol becomes decoration, a virtue becomes preference. Even goes back to the Bible. Faith without works is dead, often referred to as dirty rags. We can't get into heaven with just our simple good deeds in the world. We have to have faith and do things faithfully. Faith gives weight to our words, gives seriousness to our promise, and it gives meaning to our obligation. I know swearing on the Holy Bible, as I have taken every obligation, That meant something. I took it seriously because we're swearing on the holiest thing in the world. That is the Holy Bible. Now, to me it is. Or other brothers, it may be other versions. If there is no higher authority than the self, then morality becomes negotiable, and masonry cannot stand on negotiable ground. It has to stand on a foundation. We're a foundation of brothers who uphold each other, who bring men to be better men and better versions of themselves. Faith is what makes a mason trustworthy when no one is watching. And that's part of the integrity. That's the type of men that we want to share lodge with. You know, one thing that we've probably got away from is doing like that thorough background check. We used to go out and knock on the neighbor's door of a potential candidate and really get to know about a thing, because how a guy treats his neighbor could say a lot about him. You know, in the Holy Bible, as a Christian, it says, love thy neighbor. Being rude to your neighbor is the same as killing your neighbor. So think about that. When nobody's looking, how do you act? Because it's what makes us trustworthy. It's what gives us integrity, because even when nobody's looking, we are doing the right thing in the world. And that's very important. Masons don't need any help getting bad PR or anything like that. We get plenty enough. Faith in Masonic history. From its earliest days, Masonry understood this. The operative stonemasons of old built cathedrals that stretch towards heaven, structures designed not just for shelter, but for worship. Their work was an act of faith. Later, as masonry became speculative, the faith remained, but its expression changed. The tools moved from stone to soul. The building moved from cathedral to character. So, as we enter masonry, we come from that stone to the living stone. Talk about ourselves. And we have an ashlar in front of us, and we spend our entire life using our working tools to shape that into perfect ashlar. But it can't become perfect until we cross those lines of the pearly gates. And when we hear those final words, well done, good and faithful servant. Or at least that's what most people hope to hear at the end of this life. But I have faith knowing that's what I will hear at the end of this life. Even during the Enlightenment, an age that celebrated reason, Masonry insisted that reason must be guided by faith, not divorced from it. That's why atheism was historically incompatible with the craft. Not out of exclusion, but because Masonry demands moral accountability rooted in something eternal. Here that comes again. Can't be an atheist and be a Freemason. We just don't allow it. Faith was never optional. It was foundational. Faith should be the foundation, good works of any good man. Faith and the initiation experience. Think back quietly to your own initiation. There was probably a lot of things going through your head. I remember being in the preparation room. Even before that, out in the the hall after we'd had dinner, just waiting. A friend that later became a brother came out and asked me some questions. At the time, I had no idea why I was answering these questions, or what would mean if I answered no to them. And then they came out. A couple guys came out and got me, took me to the preparation room. And I just remember being in there. They're like, you need to change into these and out of your clothes. It's like, holy cow. Now they were respectful. They did step out of the room and let me change in my own privacy, which I thought was nice of them. But really shouldn't matter. But think about to that moment when you entered the lodge. You entered the lodge in a state of darkness. You didn't know what was coming. You had no control over the process. And yet you moved forward. That moment required faith. You, maybe you just didn't realize it. But the men had shared stories with me that, hey, we've been in the same position as you, and we're still here. We're all right. So that gave me a little bit more hope. But faith is what pushed me to go forward with it. And that was faith in the men around you, faith in the institution, faith that you were about to experience had meaning even before you fully understood it. You come in, you're met and given a little speech, but right after that, as you enter the lodge, first thing you do is you invoke the blessing of deity. That's definitely something I want to follow. That lesson is profound. You don't think about it at first. You're in a lodge, a state of darkness. Think about the world. It was dark without form in the beginning before God created it. Same thing as you're entering the Mason Hall for the first time. Such a profound lesson. You're in darkness, but you have the faith to move forward, the faith that you will be not led astray. Masonry teaches us symbolically that faith precedes light, because God is light. That humility comes before wisdom, that trust comes before understanding. And isn't that true in life? How often are we called to step forward without all the answers, trusting that the path will become clear only after we walk it? I know it's happened many times in my life, personally, professionally. I just took that leap of faith and said, God, I know you got me. Let's go. And then faith is a moral compass. Faith is not meant to stay inside the lodge. Just, as brothers, we love to conversate with each other. We love to be in each other's presence. If it does, if it does, then it has failed its purpose if it stays within just a lodge room. Because when we leave that lodge, we should be taking that light out into the world, brothers. Should be taking that light out and shining it into the darkest corners of the earth. Because somewhere there could be another lost friend just waiting to come to light. A Mason should shape how he speaks, how he works, how he treats others, and how he responds to temptation. And we're going to talk about that here in a little bit by some working tools. Ritual teaches us what is right. Faith compels us to do what is right. When a Mason chooses integrity over convenience, charity over recognition, truth over comfort, that faith is in action. The lodge refines us, faith directs us. Next, faith in a modern world. We live in a world that often treats faith as optional or even outdated. Belief is a pushed into the private corners of life. Conviction is replaced with opinion. Truth is redefined as preference. And yet, Masonry quietly resists the drift, not by preaching, not by arguing, but requiring belief, honoring prayer, and grounded morality in something higher than self. In a noisy, skeptical world, the lodge remains a place of reverence. That alone is a powerful witness. I also think about every meeting. One of the three great lights, the Holy Bible, is always open upon the altar, accompanied by the square and compass. And next, strengthening faith as a Mason. So how does a Mason strengthen his faith? Can't do it just by ritual alone, but through intention. When it comes to faith, everything must be intentional. That's just my personal preference as leader of the ad council at church. That's one thing that I've learned from my pastor, and also I catch myself doing now. I do things with intentionality, and some of those things by reflecting regularly on his obligation. You think about your obligation. You think about what it really means. Has somebody told you, when you're taking those obligations, what you're really committing to? If not, send me a message. I'd be glad to talk to you about it. Some may say studying the law of your own faith. Each denomination, each religion, they all have their own laws of faith. Do you study them? Do you know them? Approaching Lodge is more than a meeting, but as a discipline. We just think about, oh God, I don't want to go to another business meeting. But how can we change that? How can we change that? How can it become a disciplined thing to just, hey, I'm supposed to be there tonight. I'm going to be there. And bring more to the table. Work on a Masonic education, please. Bring some education to the lodge. Letting Masonic lessons confront his conduct, not just affirm it. So we're taught a lot of things that teach us, biggest thing, square our actions. Just there's so many different lessons taught. And it confronts us, makes us think. It should challenge us. Just not in our faith, but as men. Faith grows when it's exercised. So you got to use it. It's kind of like ritual. If you don't practice ritual, you lose it. And let's be honest, we've probably all been guilty of that. We don't get into the ritual as much as we should, or time gets in the way. And I get it. I've been there. I came into the lodge and then went to night shift, and uh, I've just really lost a lot of the lesson, a lot of the ritual that I had memorized because I haven't used it. And that's shame on me. But as we come into the new year, I'm challenging myself to get more involved with it. It's the same way with our faith. If we don't open the Bible, if we don't get into the Word, then we're not exercising our faith. We're not looking for what God is trying to say to us. We're just going through the motions. And Masonry, properly lived, gives us countless opportunities to do exactly that. So I want to talk about a few things. Just a few of our working tools. So as Masons, we square our character by using square symbol to guide their actions with virtue, honesty, and fairness. Squaring actions by square of virtue, and the compass to keep their passions and desires within moral boundaries. Creating a balanced and principled life that means acting with integrity, being truthful, adhering to moral law, and being a good member of the community ensures their conduct aligns with high ethical standards. So we're talking about a little bit of character, but it goes back to faith too, the square. It represents the morality, honesty, and duty to mankind. It teaches us as Masons to square our actions by the square of the virtue with all mankind. But our faith calls us to do that because we're called to love just not our family, but our neighbors and all of mankind. The compass symbolizes self-restraint, wisdom, and the ability to circumscribe desires and passions within proper bounds, guiding duty to oneself. It's one thing. We come to Masonry to learn to subdue our passions and improve ourselves in Masonry. But in the same token, we're improving ourselves in our faith as well. Because we are not giving into our desires and passions. Brings us closer to God when we do that. Plumb is another tool. It admonishes us to walk uprightly just before God and man. ensuring their lives are straight and true. The square teaches us to act with integrity, be honest, fair, and equitable in all dealings, a concept reflected in the phrase on the square. 2. Control passions. Use the compass to draw moral lines around your desires, preventing them from leading you astray. Follow moral law. Conform your individual actions to a general standard of virtue and public opinion using your moral tools to test your conduct. Seek truth. Strive for a life of honor, and when your conscience is guide and allowing you to rest untroubled at night and living uprightly, be a just and upright person in your daily life as charged in Masonic rituals. So all these things, these Masonic symbols and tools, aims to build our character that is strong, honest, and aligned with the universal principles of morality and virtue, making them a reliable and honorable individual. So that goes back to our faith. Faith does the same thing for us. Faith leads us into being better men, better people, with all of mankind, within those due bounds of life. It's just one of those things. And Masonry teaches us that. And simple little out out things. You just got to listen. You got to seek it. Same way with your faith. You must seek the answers. And in closing, let me leave you with a few thoughts. Freemasonry does not ask if faith matters. It assumes that it does. Because faith should matter to you. The real question is your faith shaping your Masonry or merely accompanying it? That's a tough question to really think about. Is your faith shaping your Masonry? Because being faithful servants to God and doing things God's will, that helps shape you as a man, as a person. And it leads you to be a better place, be a better person. Or you could just, go out and act upon things. Just follow along. Yep, I believe in God. I believe in this. I believe in that. But, you really don't have any actions to go with those. The strength of the lodge depends on the strength of men within it. And the strength of the man depends on the faith he carries. I want to thank you for listening today, tonight, tomorrow, or wherever you may be listening to this. I hope you hear something from it, get something from it. And may the great architect of the universe guide your steps, strengthen your convictions, and keep you walking in the light.